Our next panel, we are going to start on innovation in finance. Is the recent innovation in financial sector enough? How ready are we on the contribution of financial sector towards achieving our goal to become a developing nation by 2021? Is fintech is all about financial innovation? Or there are more to add? Quote unquote, strategy, infrastructure, or maybe more. Let's hear from our next panel. I'm requesting to run the EV, please. Thank you. Let me now invite a gentleman who has been integrally associated in financial transformation and innovation in Bangladesh. He is a growth hacker in MSME and retail banking and has advised over 40 financial institutions and fintechs globally in the areas of digital transformation, supply chain finance, data analytics, and non-financial services. He was the lead SCF and SME banking advisory specialist for Asia Pacific and International Finance Corporation, IFC World Bank. May I call upon Mr. Raja Debnath to lead the session on last but boundless possibilities in innovation and finance. Please welcome Mr. Raja Debnath.
Tina, I can't see her. She's here, yeah. I think she'll have to be brought up. Yeah, because she's been drafted in, actually, last minute draft.
Oh, no, you can sit there.
I think very good evening to all of you, and we are, I think, the last panel of the day. Perfect. So we are between you and the last keynote before you can call it this a day. I'll just, it's an innovation panel, so let me tell you a small story. There's a cricket time. All remember what happened with England in the last World Cup. They had a disastrous World Cup. They did not make it to the semi-final out. Since then, England has changed. And I can see Momin thinking about this loud because he's a big cricket fan. England changed in the last 4 years completely. They have now set the benchmark. So what did they do? Rather than telling you about that, let me take a step back and tell you about all the work in innovation that I have done. I have met lots of innovative people, and I've met lots of not so innovative people also. And organizations the same. Innovative organizations and not so innovative organizations. And the two key difference which I've seen in them is, first, failures in innovative organizations, failures are celebrated. Okay? People are not afraid of failures, failures are celebrated. And the second thing is that these organizations do not thrive on hierarchy. People below the chain, people at the same level, they're able to question their seniors, and they're able to question right to the top. So I saw since morning many panels. I saw the heart-wrenching speeches from some of the MDs who were sitting here, and the pain that they have to go through in their corporate governance. and the same way down the organization chain also. These are issues which I see in Bangladesh a lot, and because I worked in Bangladesh for the last 4 years, for 5 years actually, and with multiple banks here, many of you here have been my clients, and I have seen you all closely and seen organizations outside Bangladesh also. Some organizations in Bangladesh have this already. They have built a culture of questioning, a culture of moving fast. Many others are still struggling. So today, this panel, we'll have a discussion. We'll have a discussion, we'll not have monologues. We will try to understand what are the issues. We should have 2 takeaways at the end of it. What can we do as organizations to make our organizations more innovative? And we will not talk about the various innovations which are happening in the world, because a half an hour or a 45-minute session is not good enough. We could go on talking about innovations in the world for the next 3 days. So rather than that, and I think that's something which you can also read on Google. So let's try to talk on this panel in terms of what we see in innovative companies and how do we think we can imbibe that or embed that into our organizations. So, Tina, let's start off with you. I think you are up close with the startup ecosystem, and you're seeing. So we see a lot of innovative startups in Bangladesh. What do you see in them which you think large organizations can imbibe within them?
First of all, just to let the audience know that they saw a picture of Maliha over there, and I'm not Maliha, obviously. So she couldn't make it, so I was drafted last minute by Raja here. Raj. I can, from the work that I do, I will just, share my experience from that perspective. And the startups that I work with, and I see every day, not just innovation, right? What I see is that a lot of energy, and they can see the opportunity in Bangladesh. We have a population dividend. That means that our cost, the distribution cost, is very low, and any business you start with where you are serving a need of the consumers, the market is so large that the startups, they can see this opportunity and they want to seize it, and they're doing it. So they are being very innovative. A while ago in the last panel, I talked about the iFarmer crowdsourcing. There was another startup that we work with as related to banking industries, Amar Uddog, bank rate compare BD. So Amar Uddog is an ERP solution for SMEs, and they have been working with IDLC to serve their SME. The IDLC has a big SME client base, so they're serving the IDLC SME clients. Bank Compare BD is, again, we talked a lot about credit reports, right, or credit scores of the borrowers, the customers. And Bank Compare BD is using a platform where they have automated these type of credit ratings. So it's a lot easier, reducing the operating cost of the bank, because we know that in Bangladesh, the banks have a huge operating cost, almost 50%, which is unheard of. So, anyway, so these are the things that I see from my perspective. So I don't know if it really answered kind of your question, but as far as innovation goes, the startups are looking at the opportunities that is all around in the marketplace. Thank you.
Thank you. I think opportunities are something which even the banks are looking at. I don't think there's a reasoning out there that opportunities banks are not seeing. I think as innovation, if you think of the definition point of view, what is innovation? It is the ability of taking an idea and converting it into either a product or a service for which a customer is ready to pay. And success of innovation is being able to scale it up.
I think if you look at bank's perspective, it's basically lowering the cost, lowering risk, and at the same time, improving customers' experience. That possibly is in a way innovation from bank's perspective, because if I can't reduce my risk cost as well as my other costs, at the same time, I need to meet the customer need. That's very, very important. For bank, innovation is always difficult, especially for bank who have has been there for a number of years. If you look at Dhaka Bank, we're almost 24 years in operation. So you can understand, something is already in your DNA. Changing this is very difficult. Even if the CEO wants it, he can't. He needs to have number of change agents. You have worked at Dhaka Bank, you have seen that. So for old banks, as you have rightly said, it's very hierarchical. Changing this, changing the mindset, because already you're in your comfort zone. So getting somebody from the comfort zone is very, very difficult. Unless he has to be hammered, something has to be done. He has to be pressed for it. Otherwise, very difficult to change this. My boss was Rumi Ali. He always basically was very unhappy with us. He was saying, you see how the tech companies have done, especially telco companies, what they have done. If you look at banks, we are in the operation since independence. And these telcos are in operation how many years? Since early 90s? Not too many years. And see the number of customers they have acquired, and the number of customers we have acquired. Yes, we have problems because we have very strong regulators. Because banks, you are dealing with depositors' money. If you're a lending institution, like if you go to Singapore, you can possibly get a license by depositing $10,000, or maybe. But when you're taking deposit, the central bank is always very protective, because as how you're basically protecting the depositor interests, that's very, very important. That's where I think the regulation, whatever we see, we maybe at times become very annoyed or very disappointed the way Bangladesh Bank acts or central bank acts. Even if you look at cryptocurrency, some of the countries have given go-ahead. Most of the countries have not given go-ahead. But they still think this possibly is not a currency for the customers. They possibly cannot manage it. If you look at a capital market as well, the mutual fund, and if there is declaration, whatever you do, you read the regulations and do is invest. So I think this is something that's very, very important. But the most important thing is that we need to have a very good R&D department in the institutions. So they keep on analyzing the needs. It should not be product-centric. It should be rather customer-centric. But unfortunately, we have segmented ourselves like we have to make some products, put in the shelves, and try to sell those products to our customers. In the process, customers take it. Possibly we send somebody to sell a vehicle loan. He goes and sends a home loan. That's what is happening without even understanding. That's possibly is also creating some level of dissatisfaction on the part of customers, and they are also talking bad things of the banks.
So let me go left to right, left to right. So Kamal bhai, you have the privilege of being on the outside and seeing both sides of the picture. You're working with innovative startups, you're working with innovative banks, and not so innovative. What in your mind are the key differences which you see?
Thank you. Actually, I will start with echoing with MAHBUBUR what he has told. Yes, we are seeing the bank from this side, definitely, and we are seeing homegrown startups and big companies who are actually flourishing the market. This is true. I can give you one quick example that may help you to understand a little bit. We know 18 or 20 licenses were given for MFS. Bikash or a few players have already started. So 16. Last year, starting of the year, both Bikash and one of the banks, they have started QR payments. Within a span of 3 months, Bikash has gone to a level of 75,000 merchant outlet, and other bank, they have gone to a level of 2,000 merchant outlet. And which are those 2,000 merchant outlet? Those are actually the same merchant outlet who are receiving plastic. So it's a cannibalization of the existing business. This is the difference what we are seeing from this side. If you see, we are living at a country where we have a lot of homegrown startup who is doing extremely well globally and locally. If you talk about the MFS, if you talk about the ride sharing, if you talk about the service industry, there are a lot of such innovative startups are working very fine. So I believe this is the core area what I was trying to echoing with MAHBUBUR. When bank is taking it as a product, then it's a product only. It's like other product. They don't think about it's a separate thing than the other things. But when a startup is doing that, that is the only work they're doing. So they're innovating, they're actually experiencing all sort of difficulties with that product. At the same time, they want to be successful with that product. So that is the main differentiation I'm seeing. And another point what MAHBUBUR was also referring about the regulatory aspect. Yes, that is another, if you talk about your country, India, once you land at India, at the airport, people are taking your boarding card to give a credit card. Do you think it is possible in Bangladesh? First criteria, you have to have a teen certificate to get a credit card. So we know the tax net of the country. So comparing this, I believe innovation is a must, because especially for the financial industries, what I feel there are specifically two broad reasons. One is the convenience, and second part for the safety and security. Innovation is must. And if you see a latest report of, I believe it's a May report, cash is the biggest enemy. We all know about it, as because there is a cost of managing the cash. There is almost $1 billion plus we are spending in a year to manage cash. So, but what is our digital transaction if we compare with cash? It's only 6%. So we are actually far away from the overall digital transaction space, and sky is the limit for the country. And innovation is a must. If we'll not bring a right product to the right market in a quicker way, then definitely we will actually lose our space, or the bank will lose some space to the startups also. And for the safety security piece, definitely banks are keeping that safety security piece much better than any other players. So definitely there should be a right match between these two, so that innovation can be brought in at a right manner.
Sure, that does bring up a couple of points, but MAMNUN, let's have your point of view. You, as somebody who has been providing technology to large companies, both in Bangladesh and outside, how do you see this topic?
Well, first of all, I would like to make a distinction between invention and innovation, okay? Innovation basically brings incremental changes, okay? It's not terribly disruptive. It basically adds on to whatever you have had before. But what we are now seeing is basically inventions, new types of things that are actually coming and probably going to basically become like a tsunami, if not properly addressed. So there are two types now here. Things like, blockchain, artificial intelligence, cryptocurrency. These things will definitely have a big impact. There is no doubt. And if you are not prepared for it, then God help us. Okay, that's one part. The other thing is that, we have not heard, the innovation basically started a long time ago in Bangladesh, and we don't seem to be totally recognizing that. You see, the role of microfinance has been very, very innovative in Bangladesh. Okay, it is the home of microfinance, and basically this model is being replicated throughout the world. Now, how do we reach this massive, bottom end of the pyramid? That is going to make a huge difference. In fact, in Bangladesh, that has made a huge difference, and we don't seem to actually highlight that in any of our presentations, but it is actually a fact that, innovation at that level has been amazing. And I've seen the transition of some of these micro borrowers turning into SMEs, pretty big time SMEs, in fact. I mean, now getting loans of up to 50 to 60 lakh taka from these microfinance institutions. So there's a tremendous change that has taken place, and more is going to happen, because as far as these payment systems are concerned, once that actually comes into the fore properly, then we will see even bigger changes. Now, earlier on, we heard about, the mobile operators, why they are not being able to access these markets as lenders, in fact. And that can be done. I mean, certainly they have a lot of data. There is no doubt about it. They have a lot of data. So do we, in fact, as microfinance operators. We actually have a lot of data. And through that artificial intelligence, you can actually do credit analysis. You can actually even locate where somebody sleeps every night. They have that data. So, there's an amazing amount of things going on, and if we are not ready for that, I mean, I don't know about MasterCard and Visa cards and all that. Now, look, if all the banks are connected, okay, and all the MFIs are connected, if all the shops are connected, I mean, would I really need any card? I can simply do a transaction just online, and it's just a debit card, basically. That can happen. And imagine a world where all these shops are now getting on the cloud. We don't see any, these shops, Barnes & Noble, gone. Amazon has taken over. And so things like that, even banks, I mean, have you heard of Monzo Bank? It's a challenger bank in the UK. It's totally digital. They don't have any branch, none at all. And the young people love it. They can do all the transactions from a mobile phone, and that's it. So that's my take on the kind of changes that are taking place.
So we'll take questions from the crowd, I think through the panel, so that we can have this have more interaction. Just one point to what you said in terms of innovation. Innovation need not be about products. Innovation, because we generally think of innovation, we think technology, we think fintechs, we think startups, but innovation need not be about products. Throughout the morning, all the panels that we went through, something core came out. When I was sitting there, I was thinking, each one, if you go, they all spoke about problems, but if you think of the actual problem at the bottom, they were all symptoms. The actual problem was manpower, which Iftikhar started in the morning with. That manpower is the biggest issue because Bangladesh is a very young country. In a very young country, the demand for highly skilled manpower is very much there because we are entrepreneurial. A lot of industries have come up, but we don't have enough skilled people out there. And expecting the universities to give us skilled people, no, that's not going to happen. It doesn't happen in most places in the world. So it's the job of the organizations themselves to figure out how they will skill and how they will build their culture, how they will bring innovation. And I think that's what differentiates an innovative company from a not so innovative company. The cultures and the change agents, as you spoke about, who have done it. And in that sense, a 22-year-old bank, or a 50-year-old bank in that sense, is a giant. You are giants in your own right. So the day these banks wake up, the question is, if you need change agents, if you need some other agents, how can you bring it on? What stops us from doing that?
First of all, for any innovation, you need to see the context. What is the context there? If you look at MFS, has it been very successful across the globe? No. In many countries, it has been tried, but it has failed. So I think context is very important. And at the same time, also, you need to understand the need. And also, I think other thing could be whether the critical mass is there. I can keep on innovating a lot of things, but it might not have effect. So that's very important. So whatever I need to innovate, that's why I said we need to have a fantastic R&D in every institution. Even country level also, I think there should be an R&D as to what country needs. That's very, very important. And accordingly, you can basically start building the skill. Recently, our PM office has set up, I think, a desk where his senior secretary has been given an assignment to improve the skill level of the country. When our median is only 26, and if you look at the skill set, we don't have the right skill set. We are having challenge in terms of meeting the SDGs that have been set up. So to meet that, and if we really want to become a middle-income country, then we have to also improve on that. We need to improve our I think we need to leverage on our human resource. We have to make it a resource. And then we have to also try to get advantage of the people that we have, number of people, and then also need to see that what we can do on the IT side also, I have got very good opportunity. But problem is that whenever we talk of innovation, we talk about, I think it's only a technologically backed. It can't be technologically backed as well. That could be other issue. We can also think of the efficiency, improvement in the efficiency, the processes, the product itself. So that's very, very important. But in our mindset, always it has been like innovations mean technology. The fintech and innovation, there's a slight difference. That we need to understand. So in terms of changes, it's happening. I think we also as bankers understand the need of it. So that is why we're looking for options, how really we can improve the experience of the customers, like how we can really improve the convenience. They don't need to come to the counter, because we also see if they come to the counter, our cost is also increasing. In a way, it is not only reducing our costs, at the same time, it is improving the experience of the customers. Because when in a country you have 59 banks, the only edge that you can show is service. How faster, how better we can really meet the need of the customer. That's very, very important. So each and every bank needs to work on that. Like recently we have introduced in our bank, like the payroll customers need not to submit hard copy applications. They can just submit their applications online, and we will get back in 72 hours, yes or no. Later, they will submit the documents. For the concern, it's very important, he got a decision. So that is very, very important. How soon, how fast banks can get back to the customers.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience? A mic there, please.
My question to the Managing Director of Dhaka Bank, Mahbub sir.
You always get me. Why you are asking me question?
Okay, sorry. I have got some observations. As the CEO of South said, that in UAK, physical presence of banks are getting away of the scenery, and virtual presence are coming. In opposite to our text in our country, as you said, rather physical presence is appearing more and more. About the startup finance, why formal bankers are not that encouraging startups to get bank finance? If you look at the investment pattern of USA, JP Morgan, Citi, Bank of America, even to the neighboring countries, ICCI, Canara Bank, they are implementing artificial intelligence, chatbots, virtual customer assistance. These are coming. Even neighboring countries are actually accessing all these things.
Question.
What will be the impact and what is the readiness of our country about the artificial intelligence, and whether it will impose any threat to the employment or shift of the job?
Thank you. The problem is that, in fact, most of the banks do not have enough database. Because that's very, very important. For using your AI, you have to have a fantastic database. Like if you really want to understand, if I have understood questions correctly, you need to understand the customer's behavior. Accordingly, you can do everything. But unfortunately, we don't have the database to support that. Most of the banks, we did not keep the records in a proper manner. So basically, analyzing those data becomes very, very difficult. But things have started, like chatbox is also important. We are already looking at it. And in terms of, I think other thing is that in terms of reach, because we are dealing with public money now, they need to see where I'm depositing the money. That's very important. So that's why now government has also given an option to us. We can just have a booth instead of a large branch network. It is even more, I think, credible than the agent banking. It's more because agent is somebody who's working on my behalf. While I have booths, small booths, 800 to 1,000 square feet, we can put it everywhere across the country. That also will help us in terms of inclusiveness that we are discussing in the previous panel.
True, and if I got your question complete, you also asked about the role of AI on employment. And I think this was answered in the previous panel also. It is true that with AI, there are multiple jobs which we are doing today, which will not exist. So all repetitive jobs or jobs which a machine can look at data and understand better will be done by others. For example, I'll give you an example. JP Morgan uses an AI tool to go through 120,000 legal agreements every year. This used to cost them 36,000 hours of high quality resources. Now it is done in 2 minutes. Okay? So once your data is there, and this is going to happen across everything. And in point of chatbot, EBL already has a chatbot, I believe. So I think in Bangladesh also we are seeing banks moving ahead, waiting for, you all watch Hindi movies. So there's this Hindi movie, Metro, if you all have seen, Life in a Metro, in which this guy doesn't date a girl ever. And he says that I don't date a girl because she has to be perfect in everything. Perfect, perfect, perfect this, perfect that. So there is actually a girl, heroine says it, that she doesn't date a guy because the guy has to be perfect. The Irfan Pathan, he then tells her, Irfan Khan. So Irfan Khan tells her that when you drive a car, do you drive a car only when all your traffic signals are green? No. If you don't get out of the house and don't sit in the car and drive, you will never reach the destination. The same thing with all the talk which we are listening on AI, talk in terms of data analytics. They are all journeys. On day one, most of these models which are there, they have to be trained. The training takes time. The chatbot which EBL is using, that will also be trained over time. And it will only keep getting better and better. The more people that use it, it'll keep going better. So.
If you see one thing, like in Bangladesh, though MFS is doing extremely well, but 85% transaction are still assisted. Why that is so? As because people are needing something tangible right now. And definitely, once the database will be stronger and bigger, and AI will definitely work better. We as an organization, we have, you understand, we are operative in 210 countries in the world. So the data we are having, from there, we can see what the customer is doing especially where they're shopping, the frequency of the shopping, and accordingly, we can support the customer or our customer banks to push related promotion for that particular area. But to echo with MAHBUBUR, yes, that needs a lot of data. And in Bangladesh, I believe we are still not ready for the next level immediately now, as because the market is moving from a if I talk about my area, like from a MaxStripe card to a chip card to a contactless now, and what our panelist was also telling about non-card transaction, yes, we are heading towards that. If you see the Apple card or the latest Google Pay and other places, there is no card. There is no plastic needed. And so we are heading towards that, but time will come when we will actually give a leapfrog to be there at the right time of that.
A mic here at the front table.
For the interest of introduction, I'm Arif Khan, CEO of IDLC. He has got another question that why does the banks not financing these startups? Normally in Bangladesh, no banks are interested to fund any startups because when they go to the banks, young entrepreneur, bankers say that, do you have any collateral? And they say that, I'm young, I have got some idea, I don't have money or collateral, so bank says that we cannot finance you. But just very small scale things are happening, but limited scale. Let me finish. And we have got $120 billion deposits in the banking system. And we have got officially 11% NPL ratio, and actually extended NPL ratio is 20%. So even if 10% is lost, that is $10 billion lost. I would suggest that every bank should slowly, at least 1% of their funding basket should invest in the startup venture funding to help these young startups. Just I give you one example. Every year, nationalized bank, we hear that they lose $1 billion, nationalized bank. And look at those who has taken that money. No young people, no startups. These are all big established companies. So I have an empirical evidence that women's and small business organizations and young people pays more in a disciplined way than the large organization. Just the final point, if you look into the New York Stock Exchange now, they call it FANG, F-A-A-N-G, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google. These 5 companies, almost 20% of the New York Stock Exchange. All these 5 companies were not financed by any banks. They were financed by venture capital organizations. So for the first time in Bangladesh banking sector and financial service sector, IDLC is launching its first equity-based venture financing fund, hopefully in August and September. I'm sure after that, all the banks should actually allocate a small amount of money for helping the startups. Thank you.
In fact, thank you, Arif. To add to that, in fact, for banks, I think no one in the world does finance startups. There is a venture capital fund or angel fund, whatever. In fact, government has taken an initiative, and I think the law will be done very soon in terms of venture capital fundraising as well, and there will be also Bangladesh Bank, and I have been also one of the team, and they are basically working on that, and they are trying to build a fund, and they will be requesting all the banks to set aside some of the funds to build up that. So it's already ongoing. It's an ongoing thing.
Okay, and as you can expect on a panel to hear differing views, so I am here to bat for the bankers who don't fund startups, and I think that's a really good idea. Banks are not in the business of venture funding. Venture funding is for people who can take risk. Bank has deposits of common depositors. It is not their job to go into high-risk ventures, and that's the reason banks ask for collateral, because they are not sure about their credit underwriting or they don't have enough data back. So in my view, as we see differing views here, banks should never get into venture funding. IDLC, we worked with you. You have a separate vehicle for venture funding, which is very different from a bank doing venture funding off their own balance sheet, which could be a recipe for really disaster. That 1%, because if you look at venture capital industry track record globally, 90% of the venture capital funds do not give returns. They lose their fund itself. So we heard the FANG, but there are hundreds of other FANGs which we don't know of. So we eulogize the few and far between success track records, and we forget all the failures. I think talking about the failures is also very important. Okay, any questions? Mike there at the corner.
So as a fintech provider for the past 2 decades, what are the kinds of things that, as a fintech provider, South-Tech is providing that is interesting or attractive to the financial institutions and NBFIs of Bangladesh? Question to Mr. Kader.
What do we provide? Actually, as I said earlier on, we have been involved in the innovations of microfinance innovation for a very long time. And we're doing that not only in Bangladesh, but also outside Bangladesh quite successfully. Apart from that, we are also working on the same type of things like, automated credit scoring systems, automated credit analysis and approval systems, and of course, we are logging into, or rather connecting to credit card companies to basically provide payment systems, making APIs to various payment providers, so that the whole ecosystem, we are basically working on that. So that's and apart from that, of course, we are in the fintech area, but at the same time, we are also building ERPs in, knowing fully well that Bangladesh is emerging as an industrial country. So we are also providing technology to the emerging SME sector.
Thank you. We will have one last question before we wrap it up. One, two, three, gone. Okay, so you don't get questions. So I would like to take this opportunity of thanking the panelists here and the audience. It's nearly 6 o'clock, and you're all still sitting here. It's an amazing thing, because we were actually thinking before this panel that this is the last panel. There's no way people are going to be sitting here. And we were thinking that rather than sitting up here, we'll actually sit there and have a chat amongst ourselves here in a small group. But thanks, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Raja Debnath. I'm requesting the panelists to stay back on the stage. Mr. Mahbubur, please kindly. I'm requesting Mr. Mominul Islam, Managing Director and CEO, IPDC Finance, to please come over to the stage for handing over the crest to our panelists and the moderator.
Session